Welcome back, everyone. Sheepdog Smokey here, and this is the song that never ends. It's just that this is much more annoying than the actual song that never ends. Kamala Harris promises swift executive action if Congress doesn't pass gun control legislation. CNN Senator Kamala Harris on Monday pledged that, if elected president, she would take executive action enacting sweeping gun control measures if Congress fails to send comprehensive legislation to her desk in her first 100 days. Enough, says the fact sheet outlining the proposals that the campaign plans to unveil publicly tomorrow. We're not waiting any longer. The pledge by Harris to act unilaterally by executive action sharpens her repeated calls on the campaign trail, blasting Congress for failing to act on gun violence, especially mass shootings. Last weekend, at her town hall in Orangeburg, South Carolina, Harris told the crowd, "It is a false choice to suggest you are either in favor of the Second Amendment or you want to take everyone's guns away. We need leaders in Washington, D.C. who have the courage to speak the truth." The plan, as outlined in her proposal, aims to move closer to federal universal background checks, registration, not background. A first step move the campaign calls mandated near universal background checks. The campaign says this 100-day pledge is just part of the gun safety agenda Harris will pursue as president. These are practical solutions and will save lives, said Chris Brown, president of the gun safety group, the Brady Campaign. The Brady Bill, passed a quarter-decade ago, was a powerful tool requiring federal background checks, but as the internet came of age, private sellers increasingly turned to the web and were not required to conduct a background check under the law. Harris's proposal, said Brown, would update the federal law with modern times. What people want is for dangerous people not to have easy access to guns, Brown said. When I look at each of these proposals, that's what she's achieving. I'm going to stop here and I'm going to say something. Criminals don't obey the law. Period. If it's illegal to buy a gun without a background check, and someone can walk into a dark alley or look for a coded message on a website and meet someone and pay cash and walk away with a gun, they will. What this supposed executive action will do is it's going to be a law mandating that private citizens, when selling a firearm, must go have a background check run. I can't speak for everyone, but when I sell a firearm, I have the person meet me at an FFL dealer. It normally costs me $10 to $20 because the dealer I go to is one of the few mom and pop shops left, as they're called. I know the guy; they're a great store right here in my hometown. They've helped me out on a lot of things when I've had issues with maintenance or whatnot. And they understand I want to be safe with who I sell my firearms to, so they don't charge me a lot, and I pay the fee. So if someone's not willing to meet me at that store, I don't sell my firearm to them. And I would hope logical thinking people would do the same. But to tell people you can't sell your personal property as a private citizen to another private citizen without the government getting involved is a violation of the Second and Fourth Amendments. Harris's proposal, said Brown, would update federal law with modern times. What people want is for dangerous people not to have easy access to guns, Brown said. When I look at each of these proposals, that's what she's achieving. No, it's not. The proposal comes from the decades-long former prosecutor who recently pointed out that she herself is a gun owner. Yes, Kamala has now admitted she owns a gun. Harris's pledge lays out 4 points. The first would mandate what the proposal calls near universal background checks by requiring anyone who sells 5 or more guns per year to run a background check on all gun sales. How is it to be enforced? If Billy Bob knows that Jim Bob wants to buy his shotgun, and there are 5 other guys that want to buy shotguns that he's had over the years, and they're just going to come over to his house and hand him a stack of cash, how are you going to know that happened unless you are monitoring every American citizen 24/7? The target is to classify that seller of more than 5 guns as a dealer of firearms. A recent CNN investigation highlighted the problem of unlicensed gun dealing in America. An aide said the campaign read the investigation as it was crafting the proposal. I don't trust CNN. Another part of Harris's proposal would revoke the licenses of gun manufacturers and dealers who break the law. Excuse me, that's already law for the worst cases. The Harris plan would make them criminally liable. It would also fine gun corporations up to $500,000 for each violation, using that money for community-based violence intervention programs and mental health treatment. Currently, a 2005 law called the Protection of Commerce in Arms Act shields the gun industry from liability when third parties use weapons for criminal purposes, but not from the federal government, argues Harris. Miss Harris, are you going to make it illegal? Are you going to make it law that Ford is liable when a drunk driver drives a Ford Escape into a home? You cannot mandate that a manufacturer is responsible for what the end user does with their product. Is Craftsman liable for wrongful death if someone uses a wrench to kill someone? No. It's insanity is what it is. Harris's plan also reverses a Trump administration action that narrowed the definition of fugitive from justice, which allows a gun sale unless a person can be shown to have fled a state for the purpose of avoiding charges. That is literally the definition of fugitive from justice. If there is a warrant for your arrest and you try to buy a gun, that person is going to call the police. All we need to do is fix NICS. We don't need a new law that says all of this stuff that was already illegal is super secret awesome illegal now. Fix the system that the federal background check that's already mandated runs through. The Harris plan also expands a federal law that prohibits gun sales to domestic violence abusers. If you have a domestic violence conviction, you are a prohibited possessor. How can you make it more illegal than being illegal? Currently, federal law prohibits those sales to a married partner convicted of domestic violence misdemeanors. Harris would apply that law where an abuser is a dating partner. You don't need to change the gun law. That change needs to be a domestic violence conviction. I don't care who it was against. But how about making it more simple than that? If you're convicted of assault and battery, if you like to beat people up, we don't want you having a gun. The Harris campaign makes clear this is an opening salvo in a larger part of her gun safety agenda. Harris has pledged on the campaign trail to enact universal background checks, renew the assault weapons ban, and prohibit those convicted of federal hate crime from purchasing guns. If you're a felon, you cannot own a gun. We do not need a law that says, oh, well, you're a felon, so you can't own a gun, but you also was a hate crime, so you can't own a gun again. The politics on gun safety have absolutely changed, says Peter Ambler, executive director and co-founder of Giffords, the gun safety organization founded by and bearing the name of former Rep. Gabby Giffords, who was shot while in office. Ambler recalled that John Kerry, the 2004 Democratic presidential nominee, once donned a duck-hunting outfit to align himself with gun owners. Today, many of the Democratic candidates routinely talk about fighting the NRA and gun safety measures. But the shift in Democratic sentiment on gun legislation is likely to haunt at least one contender. Senator Bernie Sanders, in 2005, voted for the Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act, the law that Harris is targeting in her gun policy rollout. During the 2016 presidential race, Hillary Clinton blasted Sanders for the vote that led to the law shielding the gun industry. Sanders pledged at the time he would act to repeal it. It has gone from a third rail to a main issue that will provide a key contrast to Donald Trump, Ambler said. Being the first with a proposal like this speaks to Senator Harris's courage and the degree to which she's speaking to the issue. It's a bold proposal. I'm going to sum this up and then I'm going to tell you my thoughts on it as soon as I can get CNN's website to work. 1. Universal background checks is code for registration of firearms. They can't do anything until they know who has guns. So when they get their near universal background checks, within a very short time they will expand it to, we need you to, anyone who has a gun, you need to bring all your serial numbers to a licensed dealer, and you need to be checked again. We're going to do this every year to make sure that you haven't broken the law. That will tell them who has the guns and where they are. Next will be, these types of guns are illegal, so we know who all has them, we know who you are, we know where you live, just turn them in. similar to Eric, I have nukes, Swalwell's mandatory buyback policy that if you don't comply, you'll go to jail. Domestic violence. We don't need to say that domestic violence against a spouse or a dating partner makes you a prohibited possessor. Just say violence. If you're convicted of a violent crime, you should not be allowed to own firearms, at least for a time, if ever again. But we don't want to do that because that would actually be common sense. They want it to be violence against women or hate crimes so that men who are victimized still don't have a leg to stand on in court. The rest of it is just idiotic because think back to President Donald Trump signing an executive order declaring a state of emergency on the U.S. southern border and how the Democrats responded. How they said it was a dangerous precedent, despite the fact that Obama had 13 at one point, and Donald Trump has one state of emergency. So this is an actual admission from a Democratic candidate basically saying, elect me president, I will bypass Congress, I will ignore the Constitution, and I will take your guns. Because it's a very short step from registration to confiscation. Also, making Ruger, the people who make firearms, liable when a criminal steals mine and uses it in a crime, also probably making me a criminal for being robbed, they'll just go out of business, putting thousands upon thousands of people out of work. But of course, Democrats don't care about people who are losing jobs in industries they hate. They'll never answer the question of, is Ford or Dodge or GMC responsible when a drunk driver drives a Ford or a Dodge or a GMC and kills someone? Most of them are silent, at least. Now, many of them say, well, no, that's not the same thing. It is exactly the same thing. It is a company that produces a product that has an intended use. When used improperly in the commission of a crime, the manufacturer had nothing to do with it. But Democrats and liberals don't care. They see Ruger, Smith & Wesson, Glock, and they see deep pockets and a company they hate. I don't know what more I can say on this. Really, I don't. Because the issue is not clouded in any way. It is cut and dry. Law-abiding citizens are the only people that any of these new executive actions that she says she'll take, despite having been one of the loudest voices telling Donald Trump to not do any executive actions because you can't circumvent Congress, but she can, are all unconstitutional, and they will not affect criminals in any way. And she knows it. But again, Kamala Harris, Bernie Sanders, Booker, Swalwell, Pelosi, all of them are the party that read George Orwell and Ray Bradbury and Aldous Huxley and said, these are great ideas. We need to do this stuff. While law-abiding, thinking Americans in flyover country read them and said, dear God, don't let anyone get into office who read these wrong. And unfortunately now we have hundreds of them. But I've talked long enough. Let me know what your thoughts are. Keep the comments civil. We do not learn from argument, we learn from debate. I will tell you, I have had to hide or block people because they cannot remain civil. And by civil, I do not mean agree with me. By civil, I mean treat everyone with the same amount of respect that you want aimed at you. If that is nil, I will happily give you no respect and block you. So, with that said, as always, remember to like, share, and comment on this video, as well as to subscribe and activate notifications so that you are among the first to know when any new content is posted. Until the next time, everyone have a wonderful day.